My name is Nancy Moore. I live in Vancouver and I am teaching at one of the instructors at the Brewing and Brewery Operations program at Kwantlen Polytechnic University out in Langley. I have been brewing for 38 years in June. I think I was like most university students. I drank beer because that's what you did as a university student. And when I finished, I studied chemistry, and I literally saw an ad on the bulletin board at the University of Alberta, and that Labatt was looking for technical people, and I said, "That sounds like fun." They started to interview me, and after 3 sets of interviews, and they were offering me a job as a technical trainee to learn to be a brewmaster, I thought, well, I'll do this until it isn't fun anymore, and lasted with that company for 26 years. It's diversity, and diversity in many things. To be able to, I was the first woman hired in the technical training program there, and to be able to walk into a room full of women who love beer and are making great beer and are making really interesting beers is fabulous. This is, I think, what I had hoped would happen, but it took longer than I had expected. For me personally, it is to be able to use my accumulated knowledge to help raise and mentor the next generation of brewers. I want people to be able to go out and not have to make all the mistakes that I did over all that years. For the industry, it is that we continue to make it interesting and to make it accessible and to make it a place where everybody's welcome and everybody's trying to make great beer because we love great beer. It would be go for it. It would be go find some place, either come and learn with us at Kwantlen, because I think we do a great job of providing both the science and the practical aspects and the business aspects to really equip you to go anywhere in the brewing world. But it may be to start with your friend who's starting a brewery or start home brewing, but there's nothing male about this business, so just go and do it and love it.
My name is Julia Hanlon, and I'm the Brewmaster at Steamworks Brewing Company. I don't know if I would say it was organically in that I drank a lot of beer. And I was doing engineering at UBC, chemical and biological engineering, and turned out that the biological component of my degree was really the study of fermentation. And I was really interested in beer, and I've also really always been interested in food and cooking and baking and creating things for my friends and family to eat and enjoy, and I've always gotten a lot of joy from doing that, and so making beer seemed like a great extension of those sort of hobbies and then turning them into a career. Where did I start in the industry? I started in an apprenticeship program with Molson Coors in Vancouver at the Burrard Street Brewery, which that was in 2005. So at that time in Vancouver, you know, the craft beer scene is obviously nothing like it is right now. Steamworks is still around, but which is kind of funny. But if you wanted to work in a brewery, that was the brewery. And so I was with them for 10 years. I did my brewing diploma down at UC Davis while I was working at Molson. And I worked in every part of the brewery, from procurement to brewing, packaging, logistics, warehousing. That was kind of the apprenticeship program. So that was the first 2 years I was with Molson, and then I was hoping to get into a brewing role. But as it was actually definitely an old boys club for sure. So there wasn't really that opportunity right at that particular point. So I worked as a packaging supervisor for a few years, and then an area manager for the packaging lines in Vancouver, so can line, bottle line, keg line. And then finally someone retired, and I was able to make the jump into the brewing department, which is ultimately where I wanted to be. and then I worked in the brewing department for another, yeah, I guess 5 years. So before making the switch to Steamworks. It's a tough question. I feel like in major corporations, there's definitely a push for to have more women in male-dominated roles. So I think in those big companies, it's a bit of a mandate for them. Whereas I think coming to craft, it's happening much more organically. The level of interest among women in beer is growing, and hence the number of women working in beer, I think, is growing. So I don't notice a big difference in attitude. Like, certainly, I've never really worked with anybody that was discriminatory towards me, or, you know, I've really seen nothing but support. So. I'm kind of riding a wave at the moment, I want to say. Since I've been with Steamworks for 2 years, we've had, you know, a pretty good degree of success with flagship IPA and some of the other limited releases that we've come out with. So I think the challenge from this point is to really just keep that momentum and stay relevant in a community of brewers that is just growing and growing. So. Take a chance, take the leap. I mean, I don't think there's really there's nobody else stopping women from being in the brewing industry, so go for it. It's a blast. The vibe in there is amazing. There's actually more men than I thought there would be, which is actually really cool. The first hour was great with just the women. It was really neat to see the different demographics. A lot of like very, younger women in their 20s up to women in my mom's age, I guess. I'm not going to tell you my mom's age. She'd be mad at me. But yeah, there's definitely a wide demographic of ladies in there enjoying beer, which is the coolest thing to see.
I'm Claire Wilson, and I'm from Dogwood Brewing in Vancouver. Started studying brewing and distilling when I went to university straight out of high school, and I went to Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, and I did the brewing and distilling BSc, and from then I worked at lots of fun breweries when I was studying, and then my real career when I started brewing was for Meantime Brewing in London, back when they were a very small brewery in a tram shed in a dubious part of London, and it's a really exciting time because they were going through some amazing changes and expansions, and it was a really exciting time for me because I ended up with the opportunity to brew about 100 different types of beers and learn from some really amazing brewers. So it's really exciting. I don't know. I think like with a lot of women, they don't necessarily see it as a career option. So it's not something that I really thought was open to me until I started looking at university courses. That's when I started looking at it, and I was interested in the biological sciences. I was thinking about studying doing immunology or doing like cell biology kind of courses, and I found the brewing and distilling course, and my parents were they were like, that doesn't sound real. I'm like, it's a real course, I guarantee you. I did my research, and I was like, it's a real course. It's the only course that people get headhunted out of because it's one of the only ones. It's only one in Britain that has the equivalency for those professional exams. And I said, so I'll always have a job, probably get headhunted, and, unless they reintroduce prohibition, and then I'll be a millionaire, so it'll be fine. Yeah, so I brewed in England, I worked for some small breweries and some real ale breweries, and I worked for one of the biggest breweries in the UK, and I did this management mentor course with that, where they sent me to work with their best team leaders in their best facilities, and it was a really, because I'd done the technical training, and then it was the kind of the leadership management training. It was a really exciting program. I really learned a lot, and I learned, one of the main lessons I learned is that I love craft beer, and I love actually brewing, and I missed it a lot when I was trying to run teams of people in large beer factories. So that's something that since I left then I've worked in smaller breweries, and then when I moved here, I worked for a couple of breweries here, and then I met my now husband, and his dream was always to open his own brewery. When you, from Britain though, the breweries you work for, like, people don't open breweries. The breweries are hundreds of years old. And so it was myself and himself and 100 other individuals around BC all said, we're all going to open breweries, and we did. So yeah, Dogwood has been open since we opened in March 2015. What makes Dogwood different is from other craft breweries is that we're one of only 3 organic breweries in BC itself. So this Cronobe, obviously, the Cronobe Ales, they opened in 2001, and they've a real staple and a real example of excellent farmhouse brewing. They make amazing beers, completely sustainably with a low footprint, like with their well water. The water goes back into their soil. They only brew what their farm can support, and it's a really excellent model for sustainability. And then Nelson went organic in 2009, and so we're the only the 3rd organic brewery in BC. I think people assume there's a lot more, and that Vancouver would have more, but yeah, it's just us. And the other part of the organic side for us is we try and be as hyper local as we can. So our hops come from Lillooet, and most of our malt comes from Gambrinus Malting and Armstrong, because that's really important to us as well. Not that we're just buying organic ingredients and shipping it in from all over the world, but we're reinvesting now in what the industry is going to need in 20 years' time. That by buying the local hops now, even though they're more expensive, it means that it's building that community and that industry and that infrastructure that means that BC is going to be producing world-class hops for generations to come. I think one of the main differences between like the gender issues in brewing in Britain and brewing here is the changes that have happened in the industry. It happened across the world at the same time. Like, craft beer has dramatically shifted the way the industry was run, and the availability of craft beer has changed women's attitudes to beer. So even 10 years ago, your average woman didn't have that much interest in beers, because beers were all kind of generic and like mass produced, and especially in BC itself, where you've got such a strong homebrew community, because those kind of interesting, challenging beers weren't available. People started making it themselves. So I think that change in craft beer the change in consumers, change in what's available and people's interest, has changed the dynamic of women in the industry as well. When I was going for jobs when I first started, it was difficult. It's difficult to get people to take you seriously. It was difficult to get people to understand that you would be able to do the job. Like, are you going to be able to lift those kegs? Are you going to be able to lift those sacks? Like, you're a woman. It was kind of unusual for me at the start of my career. And I've embraced it now when people go, oh, no, let me help you carry that. I go right ahead. Help yourself. Before I'd be like, I can carry it. It's my job. Stop trying to get in my way. But so it's changed a lot. The way the industry's changed, people's approach has changed. It's not an old boys club anymore. It really isn't. Even in the bigger breweries, the more established breweries, the change is rippling through. And that's a kind of an unusual question, because no one's asked me that for a little while, so I haven't had to think of an answer, because my aspirations were all about opening my own brewery and establishing my own brewery, and I've been working on that solidly for the last few years. So nobody's asked me that, and I haven't thought about what's next, because I've just been so busy with trying to establish our brewery and get our name known, let people know who we are, and just make great beer. The thing that I'd really like to say to other women who are interested in craft beer, or interested in a career of craft beer in British Columbia, would be education. I think it's so great that this Cask Festival is about encouraging people to come in, but also to put that money towards scholarship for education, because education opens doors. There's still a little bit of prejudice towards women in the industries. It's still some breweries are still very much like kind of like bro fests, and that education opens doors, and it's for everything. So to be able to achieve great things, you just increase your knowledge to be able to make better and better beer, and yeah, that's to and it doesn't have to be. You don't have to go to university. You don't have to do a thing. But there's like it's just reading and learning and studying and turn your passion into a bit of education for yourself to help you achieve your goals. I think the Siris Festival is fantastic. It's a great event. People are really enjoying themselves. I had great conversations with a lot of women who had never brewed before, or had always wanted to brew and didn't have the impetus or the drive or to feel like they could push themselves forward. And having the festival reach out to all of those women has given them the excuse to do what they've been wanting to do for a long time, and make beer and bring it to events and talk to people and talk about flavors and really push them forward. So I think it's a really fantastic opportunity.
I'm Ashley Brooks, and I'm from Lake Cowichan, BC, but I live in Vancouver now. I'm at Four Winds Brewing in Delta. Originally I started with a microbiology degree at UBC. I took Bachelor of Science there. After that, I wanted to pursue further in-depth studies, so I took the Kwantlen Brewing program in Langley, and that really got me a jump start into getting the jobs that I got. I was started at Big Ridge Brewing actually as a head brewer while I was still in the program. So coming out of the program, I already kind of had my job in place there, which was helpful, but at the time very difficult also, doing both at the same time, school and starting to run a brewery. And now I'm at Four Winds. My love for beer. Obviously, I think that's probably a big thing that brings people to that. But not just that, I mean, the whole industry is it's great. Like, you meet so many great people that are really passionate about the same thing that you love and help each other out. And that itself, is definitely a draw, I never really noticed it much. I'm always treated like one of the guys. I guess feel like one of the guys always. But I have definitely noticed that, wow, there is a bit of there's a gap. There's not as many women as there are men brewers. So then I kind of feel like I can represent females to kind of get involved, because there is definitely a gap there. That felt amazing. I was pretty ecstatic. I being up there on stage, like I haven't been doing this for too long, and to already be getting some recognition was a pretty awesome feeling. I'm just glad that the judges enjoyed the taste of my beer. Eventually open my own brewery, whether that's brew pub, brewery with some sort of tasting room. There's definitely going to be some food involved as well. But I think my dream would be to own and operate, and eventually step back from doing a lot of the hands-on, getting my hands dirty, maybe come in every once in a while, but be able to really oversee and overlook and to be just kind of manage that. That's really, I really enjoy having everything operate, have all the wheels turning properly and being able to control that. Mm-hmm. So, and then come up with some great beers as well, and have a great, my own great team of staff to enjoy that with, and begin to take over, take over some festivals and enjoy that. So. I would say just go for it. That's what I always think. Don't be shy. To each, or everyone has their own personality, and I get that. But the best thing you can do is to just be outgoing and don't be afraid to ask questions, and get yourself out there and just talk to people, because our brewing community is very inclusive. And maybe there are a lot more men than women, but they're great men nonetheless, right? So, I mean, just get out there and just meet people and get involved and just go for it. What do I think of it? I think it's actually a great thing that we've been putting on, are just putting on. I think representing women in all breweries across, right now the Lower Mainland and hopefully further is a great opportunity to really showcase what these women can bring to the table. So it's been very solid.
I'm Rebecca Neen from Cronoke Ales in Sorrento, BC.
I am Roxanne Cartwright. I'm from Moody Ales in Port Moody, Alberta.
Nova Scotia.
Cool. So the question was...
Yeah.
Sorry.
Where do we brew? I brew at Cronoke Ales. We're in Sorrento, which is on Shuswap Lake, in just north of the Okanagan in the southern interior of BC. It's a beautiful spot. Where do you brew?
I'm at Moody Ales. So we're in Port Moody. We're just on basically the Port Moody Inlet.
You're urban.
Well, kind of, yeah. It's a weird mix. It's like Port Moody is urban, but it also is very small town. Because it's a very small city, and it's in the mountains and the hills and the ocean. Like, I look out my window and I see the ocean, and behind me is bobcats and cougars. And, like, there was 2 cougars spotted on the SkyTrain station this morning. Just walking down the tracks.
and they weren't human cougars.
No, like actual cougars. Anyways, so we're kind of in the small town / urban center, so it's not as small town as I would like, but it's also like pretty chill. So what's really cool about Port Moody is it's a very small place, and it was very industrial. So we have a sawmill there. We have the ocean inlet that comes towards us. Like if you go north, it's Indian Arm, but if you keep going east, it ends in Port Moody. And so there's lots of lumber and stuff down there, lots of industry, and they all of a sudden allowed breweries to start happening. Whereas in the Tri-Cities, no other cities allowed this. So Coquitlam didn't allow it, Poco didn't allow it, but Port Moody decided that it was okay if you made something, you were allowed to sell it at your venue. You were allowed to have a tasting room, which is huge. So breweries started popping up just a couple years ago. So Yellow Dog started. They were the very first. And Dan and Adam of Moody Ales, they started planning Moody before Yellow Dog even opened. So they didn't really know how it was going to go, but they started planning it. So Yellow Dog opened, Moody Ales opened. Then the next summer, Twin Sails opened, and then Parkside opened. And then all of a sudden, there's 4 breweries within a 5-minute walk.
Wow.
Beside the ocean, there's a huge park. There's a handmade ice cream shop down there. There's 2 dog daycares right on the strip. There's a shoreline trail that wraps around the inlet. There's a kayak rental place, so you can go and you can rent kayaks, you can rent paddleboards, you can get ice cream, you can get beer, you can drop your dog off, you can play with your kids. There's an outdoor pool, there's playgrounds. It's just crazy. And now there's a SkyTrain.
That's great.
And
so our place, you can drive to it. We have no public transit. So yeah, you can drive.
Yeah.
You can't really walk because there's nowhere to walk from. Our township is 625 people. Our closest neighbors are Coyotes. And there's no ice cream.
That's okay. You have Coyotes.
But we have beer. So the name of the brewery is an old Irish word. So a Cronoke in Irish is a small house built on stilts on the edge of a lake. And usually they're thatched roofs and wattle and daub siding and then built on a bunch of piers about 40, 50 feet across. And they would house an entire family, their livestock, all of their goods, accessed by a causeway or sometimes a plank bridge. And in Scotland and Ireland, they built that way primarily because they didn't have much by way of land that you could grow food on. So it became really important to them to save the food growing land for actually growing food on and to put their houses somewhere else. And in Scotland and Ireland, your choices are bog, rock, arable land, or water. Well, rock is not very helpful. Bog, yeah, well, if you like sinking a lot, it's also, maybe not so useful. Arable land you need to grow your food on, so that left water. So you sink pilings into the edge of the lake and put your houses on there. So the reason we named the brewery Cranogue was to both have a Gaelic name that people could pronounce with, didn't have too many consonants and vowels in conjunction with each other, but also it gave us a way to accentuate that part of what's really important is the wise use of our farmland and making sure that our farmland is there to grow food on and not just to put houses on or golf courses or highways or all the other things that Canadians really like to do with their food growing land. What distinguishes us from a lot of other breweries is, well, first of all, we've been around for 17 years, which is a little bit more pedigree than some. But more importantly, we're Canada's first certified organic brewery. We're Canada's first on-farm microbrewery. And we have a growth cap strategy. So our whole plan is the farm exists pretty much in the middle of a 10-acre farm. We grow our own hops, we have sheep, we have pigs, we have chickens. All of them live on what comes out of the brewery. They interact with the hops, which are the main production input for the brewery, but we also grow herbs and spices and things that go into the brewery as well. All of the waste, which is not actually waste, it's a byproduct from the brewery, it becomes something that's useful on the farm. So our grey water is reused for irrigation water. Our spent grains are used to feed livestock. Our spent hops and our spent yeast, and some of the spent grains go to our compost, which goes back on the fields to feed the hops, which go back into the brewery. We've kept our footprint deliberately really small because we only exist on 10 acres. We have our own well. We have a very limited biological area that is our stewardship responsibility to keep healthy. We can't just draw on that and expand beyond what that can sustain. And sustainability, in that sense for us, is about making sure that it's going to be there, not just next year, not just in the next couple of months, but 25, 50 years from now. So we can't pull all the water out of the aquifer and deprive our neighbors and ourselves of water and deprive our own farm of the water. We can't make a footprint bigger in land mass and resources consumed than the farm can actually sustain because we'll die. We'll be behaving like cancer. That's not our job. What drew you to the brewing industry?
I want to hear more from you.
I want to hear from you.
Can I go work on your farm and live there forever?
Well, you certainly come and check it out. See if you want to. It's a lot of work.
That's what I love, and that's what I want to do. And anyways,
That's
sorry,
great.
that's just I want to be her forever. Okay, so
Yeah, but I want to know who you are.
so I
tell me
used
who
to
you
be
are.
a gardener. I was a horticulture. I love plants and I love nature, and I feel like people don't appreciate what we have. It's like what we consider beautiful is always nature. Like when you think about people talking about what's beautiful, they're like, oh my god, it was so gorgeous there. They're talking about nature. Like they're talking about trees and plants and air and water and clear water. But yet they don't actually think about that in their daily lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you think that's beautiful, why don't you work towards getting that? Like if that's what you want. But you don't think about that ever. Anyways.
Yeah.
So what drove me towards brewing, I was a gardener, and I love making my own stuff. Like I'm a do-it-yourselfer. Like I want to be able to make my own things and do it myself and like sustain myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I started making wine, and I wanted to learn how to make beer. And as soon as I learned how to make beer, I was like immediately hooked. And I was like, oh my god, this is so
This
great.
is really fun.
This is so great. And so I was a gardener, but I was a seasonal gardener. So the winters, I was just off work. I didn't know what to do with myself. I tried, but it's like, you get bored really fast. And so I was like, okay, if I can work in a brewery in the winter, maybe I can garden in the summer and do both.
Yeah. That's
But
like
as soon as I started working at a brewery, I was like, nope, this is where I'm going to stay forever. Because I got hired at Moody Ales when they were first opened, and our owners are just some of the most amazing people I've ever met. Adam said, don't do something, like, don't be good at something that you don't like.
Yeah.
It's like, make sure that you're working towards what you want to do. And tell me what you want to do, and we'll help you get there. It's just like, I want to brew. Like, perfect. We'll make sure that you get there. And so they help me get there. And I haven't looked back since.
So you've been brewing yourself primarily for how long?
I started brewing about 5 years ago.
That's great.
So it's not, I'm still really new. I'm still learning every day.
You always keep
Oh
learning
my
every
gosh,
day. God.
it's amazing. And as soon as I started doing casks, that's really what opened up the whole world of experimentation and really amazing ingredients, like finding, like growing. I love growing my own plants and using the plants that I grow in my own garden.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to use anything that I don't know what it is. Like, I won't use extracts. I won't use anything.
It's a totally different flavor for one thing, and yeah, you don't. If you don't know where it came from and you don't know what it's going to really do, then how can you use it?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, if I can go and pick something and I can smell it and I can taste it and I'm like, yes, that's what I want to use in my beer.
Yeah.
That's what I do. So it makes beer more real, and it just makes it more meaningful, and it's more special.
Well, I kind of fell into brewing. My start in brewing was partly as a gardener, actually.
Cool.
So I started in brewing partly because Brian, my partner, was the home brewer in the family, and I was the gardener, and he kept taking what I had pulled out of the garden for dinner and putting it in the beer, which got really annoying. And so I was like, really? Carrot ale? Okay, well, I really had a salad in mind, but okay, fine. So I started growing hops, and hops are fantastic. They're, from a gardener's perspective, they're insane. I mean, they grow a foot a day. They're totally out of control. They're like triffids. They're.
You come home and they're like,
I occasionally have nightmares where they have taken over my world and crawled in my window and they're killing me. But it's okay, because then I have a hoe and a tractor and things, so it's all right.
and they're hops.
And they're hops, and they're
More
great,
hops.
and I can make beer out of them. So yeah, I started growing beer and discovering how awesome hops were. And I was already fermenting my own bread and making other things, so it kind of led into other kinds of fermentation. And when we started the farm, my primary role, theoretically, was as the farmer, and Brian's role was as the brewer. And as time went on, I kept kind of crawling into the brewery, doing more and more fermentation and playing around with yeast and the casks as well. I think there's something really magical about a cask in particular, because with a full batch of beer, you've got this happening and this happening, it's all under control, and you've got it going from this tank, and you've got all these other, you've got processes that you've dialed in and you understand, and it's all very controlled. And when you put a bunch of things into a cask, you seal it up, and you have no idea whether it's worked or not. You have a general level of trust that you know what you're doing, and you follow correct process, and the temperature is correct, and things are going to ferment, and you're not going to explode and cover the cat in yeast, which has happened. And you're going to end up with something that's drinkable.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always that moment where you tap that cask and you go,
please be carbonated.
yeah, okay, is it going to be okay, or did I really make a mistake?
It's a really closed ecosystem, and you can't taste it or know about it until
Exactly.
the moment.
And for me, because my other media is fiber arts, and I really like parts where I don't have full control. And I think that's where fermentation is really fun for me as a brewer, because I'm not in control. I'm cooperating with not just one organism, but a whole group of organisms. and a whole biome, in fact. And it's like being a gardener in that fact, right? Where you're, like, as a gardener, you're actually just fostering a whole biome and going, okay, well, here's the things that you need to grow well, and here's the things that you grow well, and I hope you guys get along. And
yeah, you're trying to set it up properly. You're like, okay, I think this is what you need, and I think if I add this, then you'll be okay. But I'm not 100% certain.
yeah, and I'd like to go out on a limb and introduce you to Mr. Ginger.
Yeah, I'm
You like each other? Is it okay?
Is the pH too high? Too
Yeah.
low? I don't know.
Yeah.
Totally. It's so friggin' fascinating.
Yeah, and that level of uncontrol, I think, is really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you learn so much from it.
totally. Well, my experience as a woman in brewing has been varied. From one of my first experiences, which was going with Brian to competition, actually, that was sponsored by Sailor Haggers back in the day, and sitting down next to a bunch of boys from the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Malted Police, who were spouting a bunch of, frankly, BS about, I can't actually remember what the subject was, but I do remember saying, okay, well, that's not actually right. So I turned around on my bar stool and I said, yeah, except for the things about whatever it was. And they literally turned their backs on me en masse and said, girls. Well, I grew up as a farmer. I'm fairly accustomed to being a female in a man's world. But that really pissed me off. And the level of sexism in the brewing industry over the years has been pretty drastic. From tap handles that were essentially two boobs on a stick, to beers with names like Panty Dropper, to men that just simply refused to believe that somebody who had ovaries could actually make beer, and could lift a keg, and could maneuver things. It's been joyful over the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 years to see the radical shift in the industry. Really radical. To the point where not only do we have a significant number of women who are involved at the production level in brewing. So they're, these are not the girls in the t-shirt contests anymore. We're the women who make the beer. But not only that, we have men who are saying, our job is to make sure that you're making good beer, and to put on a festival to make sure that to showcase your beer. And that is a level of respect and honor that is really deeply appreciated. And significant respect goes to men who have the balls to be men about it and understand that relationship.
That's all I have to say. It's like, I'm so honored to be able to work with people like you that you've been around in this industry for way longer than I have, and you still have the respect to be like, nope, you guys get to shine today. Mm-hmm. Like, we want to do this for you, and like, it's amazing. And like, to get to meet people like you that have been doing this for over 30 years, and I'm just a newbie at it, and I get to.
It's okay to be emotional. That's what it's about.
I get to work with people like you guys, and like I get to talk to you guys and learn from you guys, and I get to ask you any questions like, how do you do this? How do you do this? And you take the time to let me know what you would do in that situation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is one of the only industries where I would ever get this opportunity. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think we've gone from an oppressive industry to a supportive industry, and I think there's still a lot of strides. Totally. There's a lot of places where this industry seriously falls down. But equally, there's some amazing places where people of all genders stand up so well. And it is a place where we value creativity and integrity. Integrity in terms of what we do. apart from the whole business end of things, but integrity in ourselves as brewers and in what we value as brewers and what we're carrying forward, that's valued in a way that I think it's not there in a lot of other places. And it's part of what makes craft brewing really special.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's
Wow. What message would you give to other women entering the
I guess
industry?
because I'm so new, I just know that if I look back like 3 years ago, I would never, ever imagine that I could be here today serving a beer at a cask festival and getting to talk to some of the most amazing brewers in the industry. I just say, like, just go for it. Like, learn as much as you can and talk to as many people as you can, and don't be intimidated by what you think you can't do, because you can do it. Like, if you're passionate enough about it, just do it. Because that's what everyone here today has done. Like, whether you're male, female, whatever, wherever you came from, all it takes is just the passion and learning and the desire to make great beer. That's all it takes. Just do it.
Yeah.
And it's so fun because, like what you were saying, the industry is incredibly supportive. Like, it seems intimidating, and there's a lot of people out there that'd be like, "You're a woman, you like beer?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I like beer." What? And they'd be shocked by it. But most people know they're going to be supportive of you, and they're going to help you along the way. Just go for it. So I work at Moody Ells, and I'd meet all the customers there. If I went down to, say, Yellow Dog or Twin Sails, and I'd have a beer there, and I knew everyone that worked there, like, we're all friends, like, we all love beer. And some of the customers would see me, and they'd be like, "Oh, why are you here?" And they'd be like, and they would be afraid that I would see them, and they'd be
no,
like,
I'm at your competition.
yeah, I'd be like, but they'd be like, "Are you allowed to be here?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like,
Of course we are. It's a collaborative
and I'm like,
community.
can you imagine a chef that only ate his own food?
Yeah.
You would not trust that person. Like, you need someone that knows what's out there. It's the same with beer. And I never expected that in that industry. And so you'll get an entire mix of people where it's like everyone supports everyone and loves beer. And I have to remind people on a daily basis, we're all beer drinkers. We're all craft beer drinkers. We all are really, really excited that there's 4 breweries on the street.
I think the most exciting piece for me about the craft brewing community, and it's the same in the farming community actually, so my two halves fit really well together, is that it's a cooperative community. It's not a competitive community. So it's the same thing, you know. Well, of course I go to my friend's farm and I buy his beef because I don't have beef, and he's got great beef, and I love the way he treats his animals, and why would I not do that? And I'm going to go to him and I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can about the way he manages his pastures, because he's really, really good at that, and I can apply that to my sheep. And why would I not do that with beer? Right? Why would I not come to a cask festival and say, "Oh, see, that one is totally on. So what did she do? How did that work? What was her thought process? What happened? Was this just one of those, like, yeah, I don't know, I just did some things and something happened?" Or was it one of those, like, yeah, well, I thought about this and I thought about that and this happened and I sourced my ingredients from here, and, you know, so there's a lot of sharing and cooperation that goes on, and I really think that's the most important thing in this community, and among male and female and whatever other brewers there are out there.
Totally. We're all trying to be better.
Yeah, we all want to be better, and we all want to be more in tune and collective about what we're doing. And the business side of how the organization's run, that's another issue. But the brewers themselves, we exist in a different level, a level of community that is rare in the world. And I'm really incredibly happy that we're celebrating it. Don't take shit. You don't need to. It's their problem. It's not your problem. If they don't have the ovaries to get with the program,
Totally. Yeah, I totally. It's the same. Just go for it. Like, don't be afraid. Because we'll support you. Men will support you. Like, everyone will support you. The people that don't support you aren't worth spending the time worrying about.
Yeah.
Like,
There you go.
we'll eventually change their minds and they'll finally clue in. Like,
And if they don't, they'll disappear.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Dinosaurs.
they're not
They're
worth
gone.
worrying about because, yeah. No, the good people in this industry will lift everyone up. We'll all lift each other up. We're all here to make each other better brewers, and we're all here to help each other, no matter who you are.